Well, the other close encounter I want you to talk about is Pope John Paul II.
Yes. Oh my. Oh my.
Oh, what was the first time? When was the first time you met him?
Let's see. Let me think now. The first time I met him. The first time was here. One of his visits here in the United States. A very brief encounter.
Have you been a priest for
I had not. Yeah, I had just. Well, you know what? Hold on a second. Unless it was when I went over to Rome. Oh, no. I was a seminarian. Now I remember. We went to Rome as seminarians.
Oh.
Cardinal O'Connor took us.
Yeah.
And so we were his seminarians. And of course, he got us in to see the Holy Father. This was like in the, the mid-'80s. But my real getting to know the Pope was after I had been ordained. After I had been ordained 5 years, I went into Priest for Life full time. And after
that was the first time anyone had ever started anything called Priest for Life.
Yeah.
Anything about a pro-life.
That's right. I was the first full-time director. It had started on a small scale in California, but nobody was doing it full-time.
Oh, yeah.
But then I made it known by so Cardinal O'Connor released me to do that work in '93. But then 3 years later, he asked me if I would go to Rome to work at the Vatican, because he said I could continue to head up Priest for Life, but he wanted me to serve over there in an office called the Pontifical Council for the Family. Now the Pope has various offices and agencies in the Vatican that help him to take care of the various aspects of the Church's work. So the Pontifical Council for the Family deals with family and pro-life ministries of the Church. Marriage preparation falls under that, other kind of ministry to families, and the whole pro-life arena. Okay, so I said, okay, and that was 1997. So from 97 to 99, I had a 2-year term. And, literally we were working under John Paul II. Cardinal Lopez Trujillo, who's since passed away, he was the president of the council. And, and this essentially was, we're here to help the Pope, with pro-life stuff. And because Pope John Paul II was so tuned in personally to the life issues and abortion, and these were such priorities for him. It had just been 2 years earlier that he had released the Gospel of Life, the encyclical. The timing on that was 1995. So the timing was beautiful because I went into Priest for Life in '93. Evangelium Vitae came out in '95. I went to the Vatican in '97. So things were things were really hopping, in this area. Yeah, it was beautiful. So we saw John Paul II all the time. And we would have, like, for example, leaders would come from the United States to meet with us. And we would have lots of meetings with pro-life leaders, not only from the United States. I mention that because I, of course, was, being from the U.S., had special responsibility for that, any U.S.-related activities. 2 years. 2 years. But also, leaders from all over the world would come. And whenever they would come, we would have either a mass with the Pope in his chapel, or we would have a special meeting where the Pope would come in and give a 15-minute address, and then each person would have a chance to meet him.
And what language would it be?
Well, it depended on the group that we brought in. Yes, it depended. Sometimes it was in English, other times it was in Italian, and other times, if we had a group of French bishops and leaders, it would all be in French. Do you really? Yes. So the encounters with him were pretty regular. And he was very, he was a very intense person in his prayer, and that intensity overflowed then when he was with people one-on-one or in small groups, because intense in the sense that he was paying attention to you, and he was focused, and he listened. He didn't necessarily say a whole lot. I mean, we engaged him in different conversation, but you knew that he was listening like a father, that he was really caring, he cared about, every person that was there. He would make comments about, encouraging them in their ministry when they would tell him what they did. Sometimes he would make a funny comment. He had a great sense of humor as well.
I kind of got that impression.
Yes, he really did.
What a joy of life.
And there was a joy, yes. It wasn't the kind of joy that sometimes people think of it as just a sort of a laughter kind of joy. It was a deep joy that consisted of, the Lord is with us. He's risen. Be not afraid, which is why he liked to say that so much. We are, as I say it to the pro-life community, we are starting with victory. And this was very much John Paul's thinking. When he spoke to the youth in Denver, World Youth Day, he said, the outcome of the battle for life has already been decided. So Christ is risen. So now let's take that and spread that victory. So that's why when he issued the Gospel of Life encyclical, he said, we are to proclaim, celebrate, and serve the gospel of life. Now when you think of those verbs, we're not creating. He didn't say we create the gospel of life. We're not even establishing it. It's been established. The victory has been won. What we do is we proclaim it. Christ is risen. Death is conquered. Life is victorious. We proclaim it. We celebrate it in the liturgy and just also in our, just all the things we do, even on a natural level, family celebrations, church celebrations. We celebrate it. And then we serve it. Because if life is victorious, if death has been conquered, that means I can't let death overshadow this family or that person or this person who's ill or this other person who's pregnant. I can't let death overshadow them to the extent that we can prevent it. Let's go serve that person. And let's bring that person alternatives to abortion. And let's bring the sick the healing that will affirm their life, not the false choice of euthanasia. Let's change the laws so that they'll uphold life, because life is already a victorious reality.
What did he say about the United States?
Well,
sure he had a lot to say.
John Paul II had a great sense of hope about the United States. He saw the church here as a very vigorous young church that had tremendous potential. He saw the way that the U.S. Serves the church in so many ways, the way the church serves the broader society. It was a very positive attitude. And when he talked about these life issues, which was always the thing that brought us into contact with him, he would speak about it as, well, if you remember in 1987, he was in the U.S., and when he was leaving, he gave that was George, yes, it was President Reagan.
President Reagan, didn't he?
That's right. The speech he gave as he departed from the airport in Detroit was a very powerful pro-life message that embodies the point I'm making now about what he thought about the U.S., even with this culture of abortion that we have. He said, look, you have a greatness in America. Don't mess it up. Don't lose it. The sign of your greatness is how you respect life. He says, as you are a powerful nation, pay attention to the weak. You're a strong nation, but pay attention to the helpless, because you have the ability to help them. So this was his approach. And if you read the document that the United States bishops issued after John Paul issued Evangelium Vitae for the whole world, the Gospel of Life, the U.S. bishops issued Living the Gospel of Life, which was in 1998, so 3 years later. They issued a document that is meant to be an application of the Gospel of Life to the U.S. And they took very much the same approach, because in that document they said there's a greatness in the American ideal founded on the right to life. When you think about it, we're a country
which comes from God.
Which comes from God. Because we're not a country that consists of people brought together by geography. We're a country brought together, we're the only country brought together by an idea. Freedom based on God, who gives us life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. He gives us inalienable rights. That was an idea that the founding fathers enunciated, And that idea and ideal of freedom based on human dignity is what has attracted people from around the world to come to America, all the immigrants, people from all different places. Why are we this melting pot? Well, what's the fire that does the melting? It's this ideal, the human dignity. Because in so many other countries, you know, like, oh, the king is the ruler, he doesn't care about human rights. You know, this is what the founding fathers were not primarily having a revolution about taxation without representation.
Right.
They were having a revolution because they said the human person cannot be dominated by a king or someone who's arbitrarily going to.
The divine God, divine
has given us rights.
Has given us rights.
And that's the basis of freedom.
Do you believe God blessed America divinely giving us gifts that other countries
Yes,
did
definitely.
not get? I mean,
I think it's clear.
I mean, is it talked about? But it happened, didn't it?
It's clear.
We were blessed
yes.
in ways, and more is expected of us for that blessing.
And we were blessed in a way that these founding fathers, they acknowledged the gospel of Christ. If we read their writings, it's
everywhere.
Unbelievable. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and there's no single source that was more frequently quoted by them and relied on by them than the Bible, even in the structure of our Constitution. You know, the reason we have 3 branches of government is a biblical reason.
Oh.
There is human, because the founding fathers realized, as Scripture teaches, there's human weakness, there's sin, there's the propensity to sin. And what does this mean? It means that if any one person or group can have absolute power in government without any checks and balances, they're ultimately going to use that power for the wrong things. Yeah. So no person or parliament or group can have absolute power. That's why there's checks and balances. You know, the president can veto an act of Congress. The court can declare a law invalid. The Congress can impeach a president. You know, there's checks and balances. You know, the president has to confirm, or rather appoint the Supreme Court justice. The Senate can deny them. There's all human sinfulness. They realized human sinfulness, and many other examples. So that the fathers realized, not only that, they realized that religion has to play a central role in democracy. And some people today, they have a concept that democracy is, you know, godless.
Right.
But that's silly. The founding fathers thought just the opposite.
Yeah.
They said, look, first of all, they said, we're not establishing a democracy. We're establishing self-governance. It's a republic.
Yeah. I just learned that this year.
And so it's a republic. It's based on certain principles that majorities cannot change. A majority cannot say we no longer have the right to life or liberty or the pursuit of happiness. So democracy, strictly speaking, is, well, the majority rules. It's not exactly the way it is in our country. There are principles that everyone has to respect. But then majorities do have a big say, obviously. And we elect our leaders, and we can lobby them for laws and so forth.
That can't be forgotten, I think.
Right.